The world is slowly starting to shut down, so hopefully you are comfortable on your couch, avoiding people outside and practicing the finer aspects of social distancing. And that, dear friends, means it is the perfect time to watch some movies about viral outbreaks. I talked about this a little bit on the most previous Cinemateq Weekly News Wrap-Up live stream, where Steven Soderbergh's film Contagion is just infecting the digital rental charts right now. And we talked a bit about why that would be the case, and I think it comes down to people want answers and they want to have a better idea of what is going on in the world. And if we can watch a film and help us get a better grasp of what is actually going on, then I say good. Anything that can help take away a little bit of the stress and leave you feeling a little bit less fearful is a good thing. So with that said, I've put together a list of 5 films you should watch if you are looking for a little bit of coronavirus catharsis. The first film in this list is the 2007 Spanish language film Rec. And initially, I wasn't going to include it in the list because the source of the contagion in the film is not really based in science, it's based in something else. And I wanted all the films in this list to come from a kind of scientific perspective. But this one is so good, and I think it does a lot to show our own fears about what it's like to be contained or to be quarantined, and I decided to include it for that basis alone. It's also technically not a zombie film, and I want to just iterate right off the bat here that there are no zombie films on this list because I feel like they are their own kind of film. They deal with outbreaks in different ways than how these films that I'm going to be talking about do, so no zombies. Also, I have coronavirus stress right now, so if I fumble stuff, that's why. This whole endeavor is hard on the mind. Although it's not as bad as actually having the coronavirus, so knock on wood. So despite the less than scientific origin of the contagion, Rec does a lot of things right in the sense of containment, in how the people in an apartment building essentially have to be quarantined from the rest of society in order to prevent the outbreak that is occurring inside the apartment building from spreading. And trust me, once you see the film, you'll know why you do not want this thing to spread outside of a building. So what I really like about this film, aside from the fact that it's one of the best found footage films ever made, is that it really focuses in on the fear and anxiety of the people inside of the apartment building. They have very little information to go on. They are basically trapped with people who are trying to give them a disease of sorts, and they just want to escape. And most of the film follows them as they try to do exactly that. There are probably also those amongst you who are like, wait a minute, I can just watch the English language version of Rec called Quarantine and I'll get the whole gist of it. And stop right there, young man. You absolutely do not go watch Quarantine instead of Rec. Don't even think about it. Moving on from the less scientific to the more scientific, sort of, is 1971's The Andromeda Strain. And I decided to include this. For one, the film is directed by Robert Wise, who is best known for films such as The Sound of Music, West Side Story, Star Trek, the motion picture, and so many more. He is often regarded as one of Hollywood's all-time great directors. 2, the film is adapted from the Michael Crichton book of the same name. And if that name sounds familiar to you, it's because Michael Crichton wrote the books that the Jurassic Park franchise are based off of. So the dude knows how to write a novel about science that isn't real. Some would call that science fiction. I'm not one of those people. Dinosaurs exist. And it's going off the rails. And 3, to quote the Infectious Diseases Society of America from 2003, the Andromeda Strain is the most significant, scientifically accurate, and prototypic of all films of this killer virus genre. It accurately details the appearance of a deadly agent, its impact, and the efforts at containing it, and finally, the workup on its identification and clarification on why certain persons are immune to it. So it covers the gamut. And in talking about these films that show infectious viruses going from person to person and the attempts in trying to contain them, I think people want to watch them during times of crisis because they want to know the process of how things go. And in that case, the Andromeda Strain seems like a very good candidate for your viewing hours. We're gonna wind back the clock a little bit more and look at a film called Panic in the Streets from 1950. 1950. It is the oldest film on this list, and it is directed by Elia Kazan, who is also known for directing Gentleman's Agreement, A Streetcar Named Desire, On the Waterfront, and A Face in the Crowd. The man is literally, once again, one of the all-time great Hollywood directors, and his filmography is must-see for anyone who considers themselves a cinephile. And that's you, dear viewer. You're a cinephile, probably. Panic on the Streets is a thinly veiled allegory for communism potentially infiltrating post-war America, but on the surface it's actually just a straight-up outbreak thriller. A man with flu-like symptoms is killed by a bunch of gangsters at the docks in New Orleans. His body is found, taken to a morgue, and that is where a mortician finds out that there's some bacteria going on in his blood. That's when main character Clint Reed is called in and identifies the bacteria as the pneumonic plague, something that is not good. Very much not good. The movie then focuses on Reed's attempts at containing the contagion and trying to figure out who actually still has it and prevent them from spreading the disease further. Outside of Kazan's direction, the film is also noteworthy because it's considered a film noir classic. So you have the lighting and the mood of what is typically a crime or gangster film applied to an outbreak film, and it just looks so cool. It's very expressive in how the lighting is used. So if you're looking for a classic outbreak film with some gorgeous cinematography by a master director, Panic in the Streets is the film for you. And hey, you've got 14 days to kill. Why not watch a film from the 1950s? You might as well. You should do it. Are you gonna do it? Yeah, you will. You will. Now, I've been calling these films outbreak movies throughout this whole video, and there's a reason for that. They are all centered around outbreaks. But the other reason is that the first one that I ever saw was a film from 1995 called Outbreak. And oh my God, this film is so incredibly 90s. I love it for that reason. It's not the best of all of the Outbreak films, but it really solidified in my mind what a movie about a contagious virus should be, and it inevitably is the film that I compare all other outbreak films to. The film is directed by Wolfgang Petersen, who is best known for directing Das Boot, The Neverending Story, and Air Force One. And if there was one film in this list that I say would pair really well with Panic in the Streets, I would say that it's Outbreak. They really approach the idea of a viral outbreak in much the same way. You start off with a dead body, someone investigates, that person then realizes that we're all screwed, and then there is a race in an attempt to contain the virus before it can get out and, in both cases, destroy America. The main difference between the two films is that the antagonists switch from the mobsters in Panic at the Streets to General McClintock in Outbreak, who is played by an oh-so-villainous Donald Sutherland. The overt inclusion of the American military in Outbreak takes the plot in a few different directions from Panic in the Streets, but overall, the main source of tension is whether or not the disease, the virus, will get out and infect America. However, in Outbreak, because it's the 90s, they had to ratchet that tension up a few more notches, and let's say that they tried to do that with a potentially explosive plot device. If you've seen Outbreak, you know exactly what I mean. I want to say that Outbreak is the film on this list that takes itself the most seriously. It seems like that's what they were actually trying to go for. But when you compare it to the final film on this list, it's not at the same level of seriousness at all. However, I think the amount of effort that they put into making Outbreak seeming like a serious film just makes it kind of silly and fun. So in comparison to the last film on this list, which will actually help you understand how outbreaks happen and are contained, Outbreak is more of just a way to laugh, I feel like. It's not a comedy movie, but when you watch it, you're just gonna be like, oh, this is so 90s and I love it. So I'd say watch it for that reason. If you want the more serious film, then I suggest you go watch, and we all saw this coming, Steven Soderbergh's Contagion from 2011. The grandmaster of all outbreak films, Contagion didn't need a flashy name or anything like that. It's just called what it is, Contagion. It's a film about a viral outbreak from start to finish. The film is directed by, as I said, Steven Soderbergh, who is best known for directing Traffic as well as the Ocean's movie. And the thing that is so incredible about this film is how we go from step one, Gwyneth Paltrow getting infected, to the very end of the outbreak, even though it takes years for it actually to happen. Well, maybe 18 or so months. It takes a while. And along that ride, we get patient zero. We get the first movements of the virus and attempts to contain it. We then get the investigation period that goes into figuring out where all of these people, these first people who were infected, where they've been, who they've interacted with. And then as the contagion starts to grow, we see all the other mechanisms that at least used to exist in some parts of the world, taking effect in an attempt to stop the virus. And in the beginning, they can't, because this is a kind of virus like we have never seen before. It has a high mortality rate, and it kills other cells so effectively that they can't actually duplicate it in order to create a vaccine from it. So we get to watch everything else that happens in a society when we're told that a deadly pathogen is streaking its way through the entire population. There are people who try to profit from it. There are people who are just trying to protect their kids. There are the inner workings of the higher levels of government and how they're trying to deal with the outbreak. And it's all done really seamlessly and all really well. It might actually be one of Soderbergh's best films when we go back and look at his entire filmography. He did a good job on this one. And to go along with all that, Soderbergh shot the thing himself too, and I really like his work as a cinematographer. It was also scored by Cliff Martinez, so the soundtrack is really great, and the cast is as large and diverse as a Wes Anderson film. We're talking about Lawrence Fishburne, Kate Winslet, Jude Law, Bryan Cranston, Marion Cotillard, and a whole lot more. So if you just want to see the hands down best film about a viral outbreak, then you should watch Contagion. But, you know, I imagine that you've already watched Contagion based on the DVD sales. What year is it? But if you're one of the many people who's already watched Contagion, then I encourage you to go watch the other 4 films on this list. They will hopefully either make you laugh or give you some good information about how outbreaks spread, or just show your own fears mirrored back to you so you can know that you're not alone in this. And I think that's an important thing to remember. We're all actually very much in this together, and it's important to remember that. So, dear viewer, do you want more film-related coronavirus news? Then I suggest you go and check out some of the previous videos that I've made on this channel, one of them talking about film festivals and how they will be affected by the coronavirus. We also do a weekly live stream on this channel every Sunday, and the times vary, so make sure to subscribe to this channel and get notified so you don't miss out when we go live. This weekend, I will absolutely be only talking about the coronavirus, because that's just life now. Hooray! Until then, stay safe, wash your hands, and cheers.